Right, so because Conservation International is in this particular domain, it's been working in this domain for a long time now, right? And it has some indicators as to which are the, so the cameras were fixed from the forest starting ranging from Uganda to Indonesia, right? But based on the historical data, Conservation International had some sense as to which are the areas wherein the species are getting endangered, or like there is a threat to certain species, maybe because of various human activities, right? Because of the human penetration, some of the activities like hunting, etc. So various other natural activities, and various other activities as well. So because of that, there were different climate sensors. Not only that, there were also different climate sensors that were fixed, and data was generated from all of it, and based on that, the conclusions were made. So it included Delphi's method, that is the expert understanding and the expert prediction in the first place, that is the expertise of the Conservation International scientists, and also the technology of HP, and also the data that spoke for itself. Yeah, it is a combination of all of three. No, it's not about differentiating a lion from another lion. It's about seeing whether there is a kind of a human, there is a kind of a species occupancy in that particular region or not, whether there is some movement of these animals there or not, right? So there could be intrusion of certain humans, and because of which the animals may not be entering a particular region. So it's not necessary that you preserve only one variety of lions and not preserve the other variety of lions, but you want to preserve all varieties of lions and all other species as well, but ensure that they are the natural ecosystem is maintained, and all the climatic variations, etc., is not harming them directly or indirectly. Yeah, so this is something that we had to provide through our analytical systems. Yes, it's an active project. Right? Yeah, that's right. So, but it's not like done on the regular basis. It's just done, once in every quarter, right? So, this data gets generated and it's stored, maybe in some terabytes of data could be on Vertica, and but it's split across different geographies and regions. So it's very easy to kind of store this data because of this kind of a vertical and horizontal split based on different sectors, portfolios, and regions. Amount of data sitting on Vertica for certain campaigns that we are actually performing, probably it could be with respect to personal systems, the printers and personal systems. I can say it could be around say around 80 terabytes of data just for that particular segment, but then there could be there are so many other portfolios as well, right? So there is humongous amount of data. So I'm not too sure cumulatively how much of data is available on Vertica, but for a particular segment that we kind of look at, it may be around 80 to 85 terabytes of data. Right. There's a concept called as gray markets. Gray markets, wherein a person purchases a particular product from a particular geography or a location, and then goes and sells it in another location, and this particular product is not registered in the new customer's name. Okay, so it's a kind of a fraud, and when this customer has some sort of a problem, then he talks to HP and he wants HP to come and fix the problem. But HP, when it looks at its database, it sees that the product is not registered under that customer's name and location, right? So there are a lot of complaints that are registered, which are written complaints, which are like bog related complaints. So you have a lot of unstructured data as well. So it's not just the quantitative analysis of the data, it's also the qualitative analysis of the data. This particular, the Heaven platform that is there, it has a different components in it. So you have so whenever there is structured data that is fed, there is a written rule. It actually takes that to Vertica, and there is the unstructured data. It automatically takes it to Autonomy. So there are like different set rules already in there. So a data scientist is what the role of the data scientist would be just to access this data and apply some sophisticated analytical programming. Maybe it could be R or it could be SAS, etc., to derive the meaningful insights. So it's not necessary that a data scientist would dig in or go deep into kind of segregating and putting the data physically into different systems. So it automatically gets segregated. But what we get, as the overall output is a kind of culmination of the data access from the different data sources, which is a combination of both structured and unstructured data. That will help us, ease up our time to give more times to derive insights rather than sorting the data issues in the first place. And that's the reason, this particular Heaven platform is considered as a converged architecture, wherein you have all of these, and the applications that are built, they are built on a different layer of the architecture. So a person who is building the applications need not actually have to go and then physically differentiate the data. Yeah, they're all integrated, so you have different kind of a bridging tools like Extract Easy, etc. So that are inbuilt in different layers, that they are there in the base layer, the fundamental layers itself. So a person who is actually building the application need not have to actually worry about that. But yes, definitely there are bridges in place, for example Extract Easy, and there are various other API indicators and bridging systems which bridge the data sources and help pick up the meaningful information. So all that is, the instructions could be given by the programming language.
Okay. So we'd like to thank Shrujana for the presentation, nice videos as well. So we'd like to appreciate her effort with the certificate from Unicorn. Yeah. Can we have an applause for her? So for the next session, we have with us Mr. Durjoy Patranavis from Blue Ocean Marketing Intelligence. So we'll just ask for a couple of minutes just to set up the system for the presentation. Thanks.
I'll start my presentation with a short video and then probably set the context for this presentation.
Concrete, first you get some gravel, pour it in the bowl. You mix a mess of mortar, you add some added water, see the mellow-rooney come out, slurp, slurp, slurp. Cement mixer, putty, putty. Cement mixer, putty, putty. Cement mixer, putty. Who wants a bucket of cement?
Koffie even meestal. Wat is nou deze schitterende wagen?
This video just shows how this guy took a decision based on his emotion, based on his gut. He didn't wait to see the facts or the information that's probably available. So my session is primarily talking about how do you make data part of a decision making process. So the overall agenda is what's the normal way, traditional way of decision making, then talk about the business environment that we live in and how do we compete in such environment, and then how does analytics or big data can intervene in such scenario, and then finally talk about what needs to be done at an organization level to make that cultural change to accept or adapt data as key part of any decision making process. The traditional process primarily used intuition, uses gut feel, uses past experiences from the decision makers who may have worked somewhere else or who may have experienced a similar scenario in the past. And obviously they also try to imitate the leaders. So if we have Flipkart here or if we have a Myntra here, they obviously look at what Amazon has done in the past. Similarly, if you have any business that's kind of faced with this situation, they try to look around if there are similar case studies or similar scenario that can be looked at. Now in the process what happens is there are advantages to this approach. Is less dependency on data and your IT systems, because you need to get the data to see what's happening. There's more acceptance of decisions because it has been arrived at through some collaboration effort, through brainstorming among the team members. And obviously, there's a clear problem definition. Everybody knows what is the objective, what is the output that they are looking for. And obviously, it leads to a lot of collaborative efforts, which kind of helps the team come together in pursuit of the problem solving or pursuit of that particular initiative. What it lacks is primarily, there's a high level of risk. So a decision which is taken basis the experience, there is a chance that it may fail in the current context, in the current business environment, or for that organization. It is time consuming because there's a lot of brainstorming and a lot of collaboration trying to get to a consensus that is needed. Low productivity because it involves a lot of people coming together and their time is used. There is a chance of bias. Somebody may be very biased towards a particular thing, and then that can lead to some kind of disconcert within the team. And obviously misrepresentation of facts, and it doesn't normally consider all the alternatives that are possible. Now, the current environment is there's a deluge of data, as you can say. I'll show in the next slide. Data has been getting created because sometime in mid 90s or early 2000, people were started getting more sensitive about compliance, about regulations and things like that, and they started capturing everything so that they can at some point of time do audit in case required, right? So that was the reason for collecting data initially. Then the dot-com boom came, and therefore as part of that, a lot of data started getting created. And obviously the IT boom also happened around the late 90s in India, which resulted in organizations necessarily buying a lot of systems, whether it's CRM or supply chain or ERP systems, without necessarily understanding what to do with the data. The data got created by default rather than by by design. And then obviously in the scenario of today, there's a lot of data getting created in the social space and in the web space because there's so much activity happening. So there are different sources of data which is getting created by default rather than by design, right? And then in some cases we have a control, in some cases we don't have control. Now, because of the data getting created, there are new enterprise which are coming up, or new age enterprise which are actually taking advantage of this data. And some have realized the value of the data, and some have not realized the value of the data. And obviously that's one aspect of it. The second is globalized competition. The thing is that today my idea is no more an unique idea tomorrow, because there's somebody else who is ready to copy me, right? We have Amazon in the developed market, and now in India you have Flipkarts and Mintras here, and you have Souq.com in Middle East. The business model is the same. So the idea is no longer, or the proposition behind that idea is no longer unique, and the duration for that idea remaining unique is getting shortened and shortened day by day. And obviously the adoption of new technology is becoming much more active, because people are trying to stay ahead of the game. So some think that just by buying new tools or technology they can remain ahead of the game. Some actually start using that. So there are all these factors which are actually hitting any organization today, saying that how do I compete against a smart garage shop next door, or how do I compete against my concept getting copied by someone else, or how do I do I have the right kind of tools and technology to remain a leader. So how do we compete in such environment? So as I said earlier, the decisions used to be taken based on gut, based on experience, based on biases. So is what we feel, in order to beat the competition, you need to have both the left brain and right brain coming into play. While experience is important, contextual setting is important, you also need to look at facts and data. So there has to be an art and science to any decision making process. Traditionally it was primarily the art part of it and less of science part of it when it comes to decision making process. When you talk to any manager in terms of people hiring, in terms of it is pretty much what's the comfort level, what experience does it have, but do you go beyond that, right? So that's what we are talking about today. Obviously, data is becoming, is just growing like exponential. The overall data that one may have is probably likely to go 10 times in next 6-7 years, and obviously more on the social space and public space. So how do I deal with it? And clearly, analytics is a key initiative for any CIO or CMO in today's world, based on all kinds of studies that have been conducted in the past. Now, there are challenges in data as well, right? It's not that if you start using data, you can get to the magic wand of making the right decision. The thing is, there's too much of information and too much of data. The trick is, how do I filter which data is relevant for me, and how do I have, what do I do with that? The second is, because of too much of data, it requires analysis to be done, and it is delayed, right? So I need a decision to be taken. Okay, now then I ask a team to look for the right data, do the analysis, and give me the recommendation. By that time, it's 2 months over or 4 weeks over. That is no longer valid for my current decision making process. So it leads to delays, right? And then competitive environment is there. So data itself, because data is there, somebody else has an advantage. So data if you are not using it appropriately, it is a pure disadvantage for you. And obviously, with data also means